Happening. Happy hump day to you and yours. Thanks for joining us. As always, this is Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. We have a lot to get to, but let's start with Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is going to be released by the Los Angeles Rams within the next hour or so. He is officially available. And last night, friend of the podcast, Andrew Callahan at the Boston Herald, wrote the following about Cooper Kupp. According to a league source, Kupp is curious about the prospect of playing in New England and has shared that curiosity with some close to him. Kupp has personal and professional connections to the Patriots, starting with ex-college teammate and fellow wideout Kendrick Bourne. The two remain friendly, sources say. If Kupp reaches the open market, which we now know he is going to reach the open market, his next destination will be harder to project than most. So Cooper Kupp officially available, and there are going to be a number of teams interested in Kupp. Pete Schrager of the NFL Network, he posted on Twitter just a little while ago that he's heard of at least 3 teams interested in Kupp. Dan Orlovsky has listed 5 or 6 teams that should be interested in Cooper Kupp. One of those 5 or 6 teams happens to be the Patriots, but he is available. He's out there. And I think the Patriots will have some interest. The question is, how much interest and how much are they willing to pay? It's obvious they were unwilling to give up a draft pick to have the conversation with Kupp. Now, were they unwilling to give up the pick because they didn't want to give up a pick? That's hard to imagine. You're not thinking about a 6th or 7th round pick being something you have to hold on to. I just can't envision that scenario. Or did the Patriots not trade a pick to have a conversation with Cooper Kupp because, I don't know, maybe they were told that Cooper Kupp doesn't necessarily want to be here in New England? I don't know what the answer is. It would make a lot of sense if you just dealt a 7th round pick, a 6th round pick, a future 6th round pick for Cooper Kupp. That way you pick up his $7.5 million bonus and you're restructuring the contract. Maybe it was a contractual thing. Maybe the Patriots didn't want to rework the contract he was on with the Rams, want to start from scratch, want to build the parameters on their own. Maybe that's why they didn't offer the pick. And maybe the Andrew Callahan story saying that Cooper Kupp is curious about the Patriots, maybe that story is leaked out there by somebody who is close to Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp wants to drive his price. We've talked about this before, players using the Patriots as leverage. And if Kupp throws out the Patriots as a possibility, maybe he feels like he's forcing other teams to up their offer because those teams know the Patriots might be willing to pay a lot of money for Kupp and might be willing to pay much more money for Kupp than any other team in the league who's interested in the wide receiver. Let's get this out of the way. Cooper Kupp's not a wide receiver 1. I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you on the idea that Cooper Kupp is an alpha, that he's a number 1 receiver at this point in his career. I'm not going to sell you that. I would not be disingenuous. Let's look at some of the things that are really questions regarding Kupp, because there are some legitimate questions regarding Kupp and what he might be able to bring to a team right now. He's 32 years old in June, so long in the tooth. Turns 32 in 3 months. He has an injury history. And it's a long injury history. I mean, you look at the games played the last number of years, and he just hasn't played a ton of football. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field for 15, 16, 17 games. This past season, he played 12 games. 2023, he played 12 games. In 2022, he played 9 games. He had a stretch between 2019 and 2021 when he played 16, 15, and 17 games. But even before that, his second year in the league, he played only 8 games. So he has a long injury history. If you did bring Kupp in here to New England, you know that he's not going to play 16 games. You know if you bring him in, he's likely going to play 10, 11, 12 games. And 12 games might be the high watermark. You can look at a bunch of statistics, and they would tell you that there's no denying that unequivocally Cooper Kupp is declining. He is in the decline. He is not the guy he was going back a couple of years ago. And if you're the Patriots, you think about Sean McVay, who has an incredible reputation throughout the game of football. Sean McVay is telling us and the rest of the football world that he doesn't believe Kupp has much left. He doesn't think that Kupp has a lot left in the tank. And the Rams, what they're doing is they're swapping Cooper Kupp for Devontae Adams. So they feel like Adams has a lot more left than Kupp does. So those are all the questions. Let's also acknowledge the fact that Cooper Kupp being a Patriot is unlikely. This is something that I've said numerous times the last couple of years. Whoever is available, I find it unlikely the Patriots will land that individual. Now, the Patriots ended up signing Milton Williams. It's a big-time signing. They made more signings on Monday. We talked about it then during the 3+ hour marathon live stream that we did. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but when a name comes out like a Cooper Kupp, who's a veteran, been around for a long time, has a lot of question marks, I always find it to be unlikely that the Patriots will end up landing that player. With all of that said, am I interested in Cooper Kupp? Absolutely. And I think the Patriots should go after Cooper Kupp. I think the Patriots should have traded for Cooper Kupp. I would have given up a 7th-round pick. I would have given up a future 6th-round pick and brought Kupp into New England, picked up his $7.5 million option bonus. I would have reworked his contract. I would have made that trade if I was the Patriots. Cooper Kupp would already be a Patriot if I was running the Patriots, unless Cooper Kupp already told them he doesn't want to be a Patriot, which I mentioned a few moments ago. But if Cooper Kupp is open to the idea of playing for the Patriots, I would have made that trade because it would have given you the inside track to sign him, right? You bring him in. Now you pick up his contract. Maybe the Patriots weren't comfortable with that because that would give Kupp leverage in contract negotiations, but I would have made that move. But with him being a free agent, yes, I'm in on him. Yes, I am in on Cooper Kupp. I think it would be irresponsible for the Patriots not to be interested in Kupp. I am 100% interested in him. Let's start with the intangibles. Because Kupp is loaded with intangibles. You want to talk about the Mike Vrabel type player. One of the things that we saw on Monday was the fact that the Patriots are bringing guys in who are good for the culture. Guys that are popular in the game, guys that are good teammates. Kupp has all of these intangibles. He has an incredible work ethic, just an incredible work ethic. He's not going to stop working. He's going to show up to practices. As long as he's healthy, he's going to go through the grind. He has a tremendous work ethic. His football IQ is through the roof. Andrew Whitworth during Super Bowl week talked about Kupp with Beadle and Zoe on 98.5 The Sports Hub, and Whitworth was singing Kupp's praises. He could not stop talking about Kupp and how smart he was and how he would work with the running backs and he would work with the offensive line. He would work with the receivers. Whitworth said, look, Kupp was like another coach in that room. His IQ is crazy. Whitworth said that Kupp would actually help with some of the game planning. He would actually help with some of the play calls. Like he would say, this play is going to work. We should run this. He would tinker and tweak some of the plays that were in the playbook and actually make them better. And he would actually react on the field, understanding what a defense was doing. And he would actually get more out of the play than what should have originally been made of because he just understood the game. You're talking about somebody who has an unbelievable football IQ. And when we discuss Josh McDaniels, we discuss this Patriots offense at its finest as it continues to build on the foundation. You need smart players. Smart players help. And Cooper Kupp has a football mind. So he brings a work ethic. He brings that football IQ. He is also a tremendous leader. I would be shocked if he wasn't a captain if the Patriots do sign him and bring him in. He is a great leader. In that wide receiver room, we'll talk about Mac Hollins later because we will get some more free agency thoughts. But you talk about that wide receiver room last year that struggled mightily with leadership, right? KJ Osborne was supposed to be that guy. He wasn't. There wasn't any leadership in that wide receiver room, not nearly enough. Kupp walks into that room, and he is the leader of that group. Even if he's not a number one anymore, even if he's not going to catch 95 footballs, He is a leader with maturity, understands what it takes to be a professional football player, and he will help guys like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker and Pop Douglas. He will help those guys mature in the NFL. If those guys don't pick up what Cooper Kupp is putting down, then those guys are never going to pick up anything that anybody else puts down. It's as simple as that. And this team needs a leader. Mac Hollins helps there, right? Mac Hollins helps the leadership in the wide receiver room, but Cooper Kupp would be a notch above Mac Hollins, not only on the field, but off the field. He's a Super Bowl winner. He's been there. He's done that. He understands what it takes. He understands how much work goes into winning a Super Bowl. And in that locker room right now, you don't have a lot of guys that have won rings, right? You've got David Andrews if he stays. You don't have a ton of guys. Jonathan Jones is now out. He might come back, but to have somebody in that room that understands what it takes to be a champion means an awful lot. And so, yes, I would be in on Cooper Kupp, no doubt. No doubt about it. I've got more thoughts on Kupp, but before I continue, don't forget to do the 3 things we always talk about to help this program, to build this community. The first thing you could do is you can click that thumbs up and like this podcast. More likes helps us with that algorithm, so don't forget to like the podcast here on YouTube. Also, don't forget to throw your comments in. I see some of your comments coming in right now as I speak. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Let's continue to throw chops, pro wrestling chops at that algorithm, and continue to build this community. Like, comment, and subscribe. We had a good day on Monday. We're up to about 6,170 subscribers. The goal is 6,500 by draft night. So we still have, 330 more subscribers to get. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends about the program Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. live right here on YouTube. I appreciate all of your support, including my friends at Spotify and Apple Pods. We had some great numbers on Monday at Spotify and Apple Pods, so rate and review over there as well. All right, before I continue with my thoughts on Kupp, Ryan Shaw, $2 super chat. Would you trade for Olave? I'd look into it. I mean, it depends on price, just like everything else, right? Olave's had some injury issues. There are some questions about, what's going on. And by the way, it looks like Kyer Elam from the Bills expected to be traded to the Cowboys, according to Josina Anderson. So the Cowboys pick up a corner. It depends on how much the Saints want for Olave. He'd be on my list, but again, he's got some injury questions. So it's not a clean bill there. But yeah, I'd be interested. I'd get on the phone. I'd have a conversation. Vitalix with the $10 super chat. Thoughts on the tampering rumors with Stanley and what we could lose if the NFL investigates? Guess the Commanders and Chiefs were in on it too. I think you're talking about the Burt Breer stuff. I'll get to that in a little while, Vitalix. Apparently the Patriots were, back channeling with Stanley, and the Patriots were willing to pay more money. I'll get into the specifics a little bit later, but they were willing to pay more money than any other team was willing to pay for Ronnie Stanley. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, Vitalix. The NFL would have to prove it. The NFL would have to hold an investigation. And if the Patriots were guilty, then the Chiefs are going to be guilty. The Commanders are going to be guilty. And you would have to look under every single rock and deal with, tampering across the league. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. It could, but I don't think it's going to happen. It has to be extra egregious, I think, for the NFL to act. The NFL has acted before on tampering, but it has to be so egregious, so obvious, so ridiculous that they have to do something. So that's how I feel about that. All right, back to the Cooper Kupp stuff. He's not 100% washed. Now, again, he's absolutely in decline. All of his numbers, you look at it, they have declined year after year after year after year. So there's no doubt that he is in decline, but he's not completely washed. Last year, he had 67 catches, 710 yards, 6 touchdowns in 12 games. And Andrew Callahan, in the article last night in the Herald, actually had some other analytics about Cooper Kupp. Here's what Callahan wrote. Kupp's efficiency numbers remain strong, starting with a number 29 ranking by yards per route run in 2024 if you're wondering, that actually puts Kupp ahead of DK Metcalf and Tyreek Hill. So 29th in yards per route last season, ahead of Metcalf, ahead of Tyreek Hill. Callahan also notes that Cooper Kupp ranked 36th by that same metric against man-to-man coverage. So Cooper Kupp actually did pretty decent against man-to-man coverage. Against man-to-man coverage, yards per route, he was just behind T. Higgins, and he was actually 2 spots ahead of DK Metcalf. So when you look at some analytics, Pro Football Focus had Cooper Kupp, I think, ranked 35th in the league last year. So he's not completely washed. He's in decline. He's getting older. He's not a number 1 wide receiver. But last year, Pro Football Focus graded him around 35th in the league. And some of these other analytics would put him right in that spot, top 30 guy. Obviously right around 30 and not 15. So Kupp is not completely washed. He still has some left in the tank. Of course, the question is, how much is left in the tank? But it does look like he has something left because of those metrics, because of those analytics. He's also willing to do the dirty work. Cooper Kupp will block. Mac Hollins is a fantastic blocker. Cooper Kupp will also block. He'll do the dirty work. He'll do the little things. He'll be completely selfless. And again, that's needed in that wide receiver room. I remember some of the wide receivers last year and what they were saying. Jalen Polk going on Instagram, constantly yapping on social media. Javon Baker telling the whole world that he's going to make people stand up out of wheelchairs before he takes an NFL snap. You had, Kayshon Boutte complaining about targets at one point during the year and not taking accountability for an interception that was completely on him. Even Pop Douglas showed some frustration on the field early in the season. Now that went away with Pop, and that has not been a usual thing for Pop Douglas. So I don't want to put too much on Pop Douglas. But when you look at the other young receivers in that wide receiver room, you have legitimate questions, right? You wonder if those guys are going to be selfish. You wonder if those guys are ever going to truly get it. Well, when Cooper Kupp's out there blocking, and Cooper Kupp is being selfless for his football team, and Cooper Kupp is telling you this is what it takes to win a championship, and Cooper Kupp is out there working his tuchus off during practice, that's going to mean something to Polk. That should mean something to Baker. That should mean something to Boutte. And so that dirty work, quote unquote, that drive, that work ethic, it would mean so much to this football team. And it also wouldn't be a bad thing to get Drake May more help, would it? Drake May needs the help. And even if Cooper Kupp's not a 1, and again, he's not a 1, if Kupp's a 2, if Kupp's even a 3, he's an upgrade over what you have right now. And I don't know about you, but I am certainly in the business of helping Drake May. So bring him in. Let him be your 2. Let him be your 3. I couldn't care less. He's an immediate upgrade. He's an upgrade on the field. He's a gigantic upgrade off the field. You don't think Cooper Kupp would help Drake May? You don't think Cooper Kupp would help May's development? I do. A trusty hand on that field, looking at coverage, helping his quarterback understand what's going on in front of them, pulling him off to the side during practice and going over certain things should not be overlooked. And the Patriots know who Kupp is because Thomas Brown is on this staff. And Thomas Brown was in L.A. during Kupp's great run when Kupp was exploding, right? I mean, Thomas Brown understands. He understands how Kupp works. He understands what kind of teammate Kupp is. He knows exactly who Cooper Kupp is as a football player and a human being. And so you have that inside information. We talked about it on Monday with all of these connections with free agency. You have it with Thomas Brown and Kupp. Brown was in L.A. in 2020. He was in L.A. in 21. He was in L.A. in 22. He was there when Cooper Kupp led the league in receptions and yards and touchdowns. I said this as soon as the Cooper Kupp stuff came out. You can go back weeks ago. By the way, Adam Schefter says it's official that the Jets are releasing Aaron Rodgers. So Rodgers is going to drag his feet because he loves getting the attention. But Rodgers has been officially released by the Jets just a moment ago. I said this at the beginning of the Kupp discussion. When we found out the Rams were trying to trade Kupp, I said what I would do is the first thing, I would scream down the hallway to Thomas Brown. I would bring Brown into the office, and I'd say, tell me everything I need to know about Kupp. Everything. Everything I need to know. That's what I would do. Lean on your tight ends coach. Lean on your pass game coordinator. You don't think Kupp coming into New England and working with Thomas Brown as the pass game coordinator and Josh McDaniels, you don't think that they could get the most out of him? I certainly do. So what would I be willing to offer? Right? That's the $1 million question. Here's my offer for Kupp. I would offer him 2 years, $40 million, $20 million guaranteed. Devontae Adams got 2 years, $44 million, $26 million guaranteed. Adams has been healthier. He's been more productive recently. He had a much better season a year ago than Kupp did. That's an overpay for Kupp. But you're going to have to overpay to get the player into New England. You had to overpay slightly for Milton Williams. You have to overpay. You likely overpaid slightly for Carlton Davis. I don't care. Get good players into the program. If you've got to overpay Kupp, then you overpay Kupp. I'd go 2 years, $40 million, $20 million guaranteed at the signing. And if you have to go a little bit more than that because somebody else is willing to meet you or get close to you, then I would go a little bit more than that. Because getting Kupp to New England is what matters the most. And I'm not being delusional here. I don't think he's walking in and giving you what A.J. Brown could give you. But he gives you a lot of things that you don't have right now. So I'd be willing to overpay him. I'd be willing to give him the $20 million guaranteed. Absolutely. I want the player. Now, my guess is I think he lands elsewhere. As I've always said, it's unlikely the Patriots land somebody like Kupp because he's, going to be 32 in June. He's won a Super Bowl. I would imagine he wants to be, on a contending team. It's a tough sell. So every time we talk about this, I find it unlikely the player lands in New England. But I would give him $40 million over 2 years. I'd give him $20 million guaranteed. If you wanted me to put a little bit more sugar on top, I'd put a little bit more sugar on top. But I'm looking at teams like the Chargers, who just lost Joshua Palmer. He could stay in LA and sign with the Chargers, who were a playoff team last year. I look at a team like the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell and his link to the Rams. Now, of course, you've got Addison and you've got Justin Jefferson there, but Kupp as a number 3 with the Vikings would be devastating. And we know they had a great run last year. The question is quarterback. Is he comfortable with J.J. McCarthy? I would look at Dallas. Dallas's wide receivers coach was a coach of Kupp's going back years ago. So I would look at Dallas as a possibility, even though Jane Slater said up to this point they have not been in on Cooper Kupp. They haven't had many conversations, if any, about him. But I look at Dallas. And I'd also look at Jacksonville as a sneaky possibility. Down in Florida, you got Brian Thomas Jr., you got Trevor Lawrence, and you've got Liam Cohen, who is now the head coach for the Jaguars, who obviously worked with Kupp a couple of years ago. So I would not put the Patriots at the top of the list. And they absolutely have to overpay to get him. But I would do what I would have to do to get the player. All right. We have more free agency thoughts. We have a lot of thoughts we got to run through. Just a ton of content for you today. First, I want to jump to a couple of super chats. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Derek, $5 super chat. Thank you, Derek. Do you think it is more likely the Pats will take a left tackle with their first round pick? And who would you take for tackle? I was going to talk a little bit about this later on. I will eventually give you a little more here. But I would not force myself to take a tackle in the first round. And I know that they need a tackle. Right now, it's priority number 1. But I would not be so desperate that I draft a tackle no matter what at 4. Now, Armand Membu and Will Campbell are the 2 guys that people are talking about. Of course, Campbell has the wingspan issue, the arm length issue. Patriots reportedly feel like he's a tackle. I have to be completely convicted in that idea. If I'm the Patriots, I have to believe that Will Campbell's a tackle with every fiber of my being. If there's any doubt, then I can't draft Campbell at 4 because I can't afford drafting a guard at 4th overall. Membu's interesting. He's a big dude. He's very athletic, tested great at the combine. He's played right tackle his entire life. So we'd be dealing with a Caden Wallace situation a little bit. Now, he's more athletic than Wallace. So theoretically, moving to the left side would be easier for Membu, but it's not easy to just take a guy from the right side and put him on the left side. So if you drafted Membu, 4th overall, what do you do with Morgan Moses? Because Morgan Moses is not a left tackle. Do you put Membu at left tackle and hope that he can do it? I don't know, Derek. $5 super chat from Eddie Collins. Thank you, Eddie. Kupp doesn't play the full 17 games, but when he's on the field, he's still a difference maker, catches everything and run routes beautifully. I agree with you, Eddie. We all have to know that this is baked in the cake, right? We all have to know that Cooper Kupp not playing 17 games is baked in the cake. We all understand that. As long as we're going in with reasonable expectations. If you're a Celtics fan, it's like when you acquire Kristaps Porzingis. You bring in Porzingis, Porzingis is going to miss a bunch of games. He missed last year 25 regular season games and missed a bunch of postseason games. But you still made the move, and he still helped you win a championship, right? Obviously a different level with the Celtics and the Patriots, but you get the analogy, hopefully. I know I'm crossing sports, as they say, but you brought Porzingis in because he's talented, he helps the team, he does things that other guys can't do. You knew Porzingis wasn't going to be fully healthy. Cooper Kupp is not going to get you 17 games. If Cooper Kupp plays 17 games in 2025 as a Patriot, we should all throw a parade. But as long as we go in with reasonable expectations and understand that, no, he's not a number 1 guy anymore. And yes, he's going to miss some games, but he does ... better than other people, and he can help the Patriots in certain ways, then you bring him in. And that's where I'm at. Thunder Francis, $20 super chat. Seems Kendrick Bourne is in no man's land between the young guys and whomever they are about to bring in. Apparently he's buddies with Kupp, but does he make the team? And more importantly, can he contribute moving forward? It's a fantastic question, Thunder Francis, if I can call you Thunder. I appreciate the $20 super chat, my guy, or my gal. I think it's guy. Here's what I'll say. Kendrick Bourne is in no man's land. And when we start to talk about wide receiver, and we start to look at the numbers, right? Mac Hollins, you would have to imagine, is on this team. Pop Douglas, you would imagine, is on this football team. I think it's hard to believe that Jalen Polk would be released a year after being drafted in the 2nd round. So I'm going to say that Jalen Polk is most likely on this team this year. You got 3 guys already. Hollins, Pop, and Polk. Now, whether it's Kupp or not, you're going to add somebody. Whether it's drafting somebody, trading for a Brandon Ayuk, whatever you do, signing one of these older guys like Stephon Diggs, who's still on the market, it feels like you're going to add another name to this group at some point, somehow, some way. So now you're at 4 receivers. You've got Hollins, you've got Pop, you've got Polk, and whoever you add. That leaves 2 spots. You still have Booty, you still have Baker, and you have Kendrick Bourne. So it feels like one of those guys is going to be left out. Is it Bourne? Is Bourne tradable? If you bring Cooper Kupp in, do you keep Bourne because he's tight with Kupp? Are you ready to move on from Javon Baker? Some reports say that the Patriots feel like they can get something out of Baker, and that Baker has realized that he messed up last year and he's working hard this offseason. Do you believe in that story? Do you think Baker's going to come back and give you anything of value? What about Booty? Booty was the best out of Baker, Polk, and Booty last year. But again, how do those guys fit Mike Vrabel? Does Mike Vrabel look at Javon Baker and say, yeah, he's really talented, but he just doesn't quite get it? Does he look at Kayshon Boutte and say, yeah, he might be able to help us a little bit, but I saw some of the things he said last year, and I'm not necessarily in love with the idea? I don't think we'll have an answer until we get to camp, unfortunately, Thunder, and we got to keep an eye on who is acquired and all that. I think you just have the guys compete. and whoever competes the best, whoever shows up in camp, and then, hopefully they all have a good preseason, and maybe you can shed one or two guys and get some picks for them. But the numbers thing is a real problem as far as if you want to keep the young guys on this team, because eventually you're not going to keep 7, 8 wide receivers. So that's a great question, Thunder. All right, one more super chat before I get back to free agency. $5 super chat from Patriots fan. If we trade Joe Milton, where would he go, and what would we most likely get from it? I was going to talk about Milton. You guys are hitting all the perfect questions today. Great work by you. I wanted to talk about Milton a little later. I'll just talk about Milton right now. Obviously the Patriots signed Joshua Dobbs to a 2-year deal on Monday. I don't read into that. I don't read into the Dobbs signing as a definite goodbye to Joe Milton. If you remember when I did the offseason plan on the offensive side of the football going back a week or two ago, I had Jarrett Stidham on that roster. So I thought the Patriots were likely going to add a veteran quarterback no matter what, because you want a veteran presence in that room. So I don't think Dobbs signing means that Milton is definitely going to get moved. However, I do think Dobbs signing means it's more likely that Milton could be moved. I think the Patriots are open-minded about this. I think they're looking at Joe Milton. They said, yes, he had a great game against Buffalo, but he inevitably is not going to, leapfrog Drake May. So what can we get for him? I don't think the Patriots will just give up Joe Milton, but if the Patriots were offered a 3rd-round pick, I think they would move Milton. And I'm on record. I've said this. I would move Milton for a 3rd-round pick. So I think signing Dobbs gives them options, which is what you want during this part of the year, right? And as all of these other quarterbacks are flying off the board and these teams that are quarterback desperate don't have an easy answer, maybe you could get a 3rd-round pick for Joe Milton. So I think the Dobbs signing is insurance. It's competition for Milton right now. But if somebody called you and offered you a good pick for Milton, I think they would move Milton, and Dobbs is your 2 quarterback. And then you probably go into the draft or you sign an undrafted free agent quarterback. One guy that I think I haven't really, workshopped this as much, but if they do move on from Milton and they're looking at a young quarterback, I wouldn't be shocked if Riley Leonard is on their radar. And I know I'm a Notre Dame guy, and you're probably saying, oh, it's just because he's Notre Dame quarterback. No, I mentioned this last year. Notre Dame's offense, especially when it came to quarterback-designed runs, you could see a lot of things in Leonard's game, in Drake May's game, as far as athleticism. They're the same kind of athlete. That basketball kind of tall, long athlete, that frame. Riley Leonard has a very similar frame as Drake May. He's about 6'4", 6'5", same frame. And he's also, when you look at Riley Leonard, I think he's a Mike Vrabel kind of guy. Tremendous work ethic, plays through injury, tough guy, level-headed kid, very religious, very family-oriented, reportedly a tremendous leader. So that would be one guy they might look at. But that's my thought on Milton and what Joshua Dobbs means regarding Joe Milton's future here. All right, let's get to some more thoughts on free agency. I just handled Dobbs, vet presence, quarterback room. I don't mind the signing, is what it is. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, by the way. If you're jumping in, that helps us with the algorithm. Our goal is 6,500 subs. Let's get to like 250, 300 likes. I don't know how many likes we got right now, but let's get to like 300, 350 today. If we can get to that, that'd be great. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, after we got done with our marathon live stream on Monday, the Patriots signed Mac Hollins. Now, I've talked a little bit about Hollins earlier in the stream today. It's a 2-year deal for Hollins. Now you go back to the year that Hollins played for Josh McDaniels with the Raiders. He had 57 catches, 690 yards. That's by far his best season in the NFL. He's 6'4", so he's a big target. He's good in the red zone. So I like the idea of having that big target in the red zone, almost kind of like another tight end, almost like a third tight end with his size. He's a good blocker. Again, he does the dirty work. He's great for the culture. Really good teammate, really hard worker. Smart football guy. Again, will do the dirty work. Some of the stuff we talked about with Kupp. Same thing with Mac Hollins. And he'll also play some special teams. So he's not a 2 receiver. He's not even a 3 receiver. He's a nice 4th receiver. 4th/5 guy, closer to 4 than 5. Big target, red zone, knows McDaniels, will pick up the offense. Great culture guy. I like it. They also signed Khyiris Tonga to a 1-year deal. Now, Tonga, he's 6'4", 337 pounds. That's what he's listed at. You traded Devon Godshaw. So when you look at Godshaw, right, going to the Saints for that 7th round pick, when you look at Godshaw, you have now moved on from him. So when you move on from Godshaw, even though you like smaller interior defensive linemen and guys that can pass rush, you still need a bigger body to, if it's 3rd and short. So when you look at Tonga, 6'4", 337, he's that big body now on 3rd down, certain situations, goal line. You can put him in there, and he replaces the Godshaw role on a 1-year deal. He's a big dude, and he does have some pass rush ability. So that's a depth signing. It's a smart signing. I don't know how much he'll play, but he's somebody with that kind of size that can take that Godshaw role, and you're not paying him $1 trillion. And when you look at free agency, the connections continued, much like Monday. The connections with the coaching staff. Dobbs played for Vrabel in 2022. Dobbs also was in Cleveland, where Ashton Grant, your quarterback's coach, was. So you've got 2 links between Dobbs and the coaching staff. I've mentioned Hollins with McDaniels. Even Tonga. Tonga played for Mike Smith, who is your outside linebackers and pass rush specialist coach. So those links to the coaching staff continue. They have intel on these guys. They have intel on all these guys. All right. So we've talked about Kupp. We've talked about the other free agent signings that we did not get to Monday because they happened after the live stream. Let's get to what's next now. Here's what's next. Obviously, priority number 1 for the Patriots is left tackle. They're still looking for a left tackle. And when you go back to 2024, I mentioned this all year long, and some people gave me crap about it. They were saying, oh, you're just defending Elliott Wolf. And I said, it has nothing to do with Elliott Wolf. It has to do with the NFL. It has to do with free agency, and it has to do with the left tackle position. Left tackles do not become available very often. Alaric Jackson, Ronnie Stanley, the top 2 left tackles on the market this year, guess what? They never got to the market. And last year, I mentioned this, people said, oh, why didn't Elliott Wolf do more in free agency to figure out left tackle? And my answer was, there wasn't much he could do. Last year's free agency class was even worse than this year's free agency class. You had Tyron Smith, who predictably got hurt for the Jets, right? And who else did you have? You had Jonah Williams, who was a right tackle. And guess what? He had a knee issue, and he played like 5 games for Arizona last year. If you look at the tackle class last year, it was worse than this year's tackle class. But yet here we are, right? Here we are again, looking for a left tackle. You've got Mike Vrabel, a credible head coach. You have more money to spend than anybody else. The class this year is better than last year's class. But yet, you're really down to Cam Robinson as an option. It's because left tackles, good young left tackles, they do not get to free agency. Teams retain those guys. I said it last year. I'll say it again. If you want a bona fide young left tackle, somebody that you could bank on for the next 10 years, the best way to get that left tackle is to draft that left tackle. And the most likely way that left tackle hits is if you draft that left tackle in the 1st round. I went through the numbers about left tackles. That's just what it is. That's the reality. Right now, you're looking for a Band-Aid. You're not looking for the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution is not in free agency. Why are the Patriots here? Why do they need a left tackle yet again? Because they failed to draft tackles post Isaiah Wynn, because I think they were shook when they drafted Wynn in the 1st round and it didn't work. That leads you to this moment. So who's out there? Cam Robinson's out there. Jedrick Wills is out there. As far as Cam Robinson goes, Burt Breer last night on NBC Sports Boston said that Robinson's reputation is quote-unquote spotty. He's got a spotty reputation. And, of course, he had a down year in 2024. Greg Bedard posted, you look at Vidarian Lowe and you look at Cam Robinson. Vidarian Lowe gave up 30 pressures and 3 sacks. Cam Robinson gave up 64 pressures and 8 sacks. Both guys had 13 penalties. Now, Lowe played 270 less snaps, so that's about 3 or 4 games difference there, or 2 or 3 games difference there. But the point is the point. Cam Robinson's coming off a down year, and he's got a spotty reputation in the game. Now, you could say that Robinson, wasn't the same last year that he had been because he was injured. So Mike Giardi wrote this about Robinson on Boston Sports Journal. Robinson had a foot issue that impacted his performance last season, both in Jacksonville and Minnesota. He played through the difficulties. Again, he played about 1,000 snaps. In talking to several front office folks, Robinson was not moving as well as he is capable of, especially late in the year. That showed up down the stretch for the Vikings and culminated when he allowed 11 pressures in the playoff loss to the Rams. One NFL executive said, quote, "Go look at the tape of his first game in Minnesota. You'd pay that guy. Not big money and for a year, but that would be an upgrade to what they have there in New England." So Robinson got traded. He was dealing with a foot injury. So those are certainly reasons why he was not as good as he's been in the NFL last year. He did not have a good year last year. So what would I do? I would trust Doug Marrone. Doug Marrone was in Jacksonville when they drafted Cam Robinson. Marrone was his coach down in Jacksonville. I would trust the intel. From Doug Marrone. What makes this guy tick? Is this guy going to be a problem in the locker room? Does this guy have any kind of work ethic? What's his attitude? Is he going to fit our culture? I would not overextend myself for Cam Robinson. I would not go and pay him, $20 million a year, $15 million a year. I wouldn't give him $20 million guaranteed. I would still sign him, but I would like to sign, Cam Robinson to like a 1-year, $10 million deal with a bunch of incentives. That's what I would do. And what I think is happening is Cam Robinson saw the market at tackle. He saw Dan Moore get more than $20 million. And I think Cam Robinson is hoping that a team is willing to give him a 2 or 3 year deal at like 15 to 20 million per. And he's not getting that offer right now. So he's kind of just hanging and waiting around to see if somebody feels desperate enough to pick up the phone and overpay him. But with the questions about his character, the questions about how he would fit with this culture, the down year a season ago, I would not overpay him. I would not go bananas. Now, about Ronnie Stanley, Burt Breer, again on NBC Sports Boston last night, he said that Baltimore and Kansas City offered Stanley about $20 million a year. That's where they were. Now, when Breer talks about offering Ronnie Stanley money, of course, Stanley never got to free agency, but the back channels, the conversations that happen behind closed doors. Baltimore and Kansas City were willing to go to like $20 million a year. And we know that Baltimore signed Stanley to a 3-year, $60 million deal, right? So as far as average per year, Kansas City, Baltimore were ready to offer Stanley $20 million. According to Breer, the Commanders and the Patriots were both willing to offer more than $24 million annually for Ronnie Stanley. So the Patriots were ready. The Patriots were ready to offer Stanley a heck of a lot more money than he got from Baltimore, but Stanley inevitably chose the Ravens. All right, how about Jedrick Wills? Jedrick Wills is a name that I've brought up multiple times over the past couple of months. I'm looking at Jedrick Wills, and I'm wondering, what does Mike Vrabel think about Jedrick Wills? Vrabel was in Cleveland last year with Wills. Wills has some culture questions. He's got some character questions. He came out last year and talked about making a business decision when he decided not to play. So there was the business decision comment, which I'm sure rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Is Jedrick Wills somebody who wants to work? Is Wills somebody who, cares about playing? Is he just looking for a payday? Vrabel will know a lot about that because he worked with the offensive line last year in Cleveland. And you also have Ashton Grant, again, your quarterback's coach, who was in Cleveland a year ago. So is Jedrick Wills missing that heartbeat portion of being a football player? Or are they just waiting to see if Cam Robinson's going to take their deal and then they're going to pivot to Wills? I don't know. There are also some questions about Jedrick Wills' knee. So is he fully healthy? What will he look like the next few years? And then you get to the rest of the offensive tackle, left tackle names. DJ Humphries is out there. He signed with Kansas City last year and immediately hurt his hamstring. He's had injury problems. He's older, but you do have DJ Humphries on the market. You've got Tyron Smith on the market. Yes, the same Tyron Smith who was on the market last year, signed that one-year deal with the Jets, and inevitably he got hurt, which was predictable. My concern, I mentioned this earlier, but for the people just jumping in, again, help us out, by the way. Click that thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe. Those three things help us out. I mentioned this earlier. My biggest concern is that the Patriots do not get Robinson. They do not get Wills. They do not get Humphries. They don't have anybody who can at least be a Band-Aid at left tackle. They don't want to run Vidarian Lowe back out there. So they end up feeling desperate, and they reach for a tackle, no pun intended, at number 4. That's my biggest concern. You cannot reach for a left tackle at 4. If you think that Will Campbell is a unicorn, and you think Will Campbell with his wingspan and arm measurements can still be a tackle at the NFL level, then you draft him. But you better be right. Your evaluation better be right. If you're asking me, I would not draft Campbell because I find it hard to believe that he would be that kind of unicorn. And I know he had great film in the SEC. I know. He was really, really freaking good at LSU. Now, there is question about the measurements at the combine. Pretty much every offensive lineman ended up measuring like a half an inch short in arm length. So when we get to the pro day of Will Campbell, will his arms actually grow from the combine? I don't know. If you're talking about 32 and 7/8, I can believe it a little bit more that he can play tackle. If you're telling me it's 32 and a half inch arms, I believe it less. Where we are right now, I would not draft Campbell at 4 because I don't believe that I have enough confidence that he's going to be that unicorn at left tackle. If the Patriots draft him at 4 and their plan is to play him at left tackle, then they best be right about the evaluation. And if they are, I'll say, hey, great job at evaluating the talent. You nailed it. He ended up being a left tackle. Picking him at 4 was smart. Would I make that pick based off of the history? I would not. And we discussed Armand Membu, talented guy, great athlete, but he's only played right tackle. So do you believe that you can move him to the left side? All right, let's get to wide receiver. Aside from Cooper Kupp, names that are still out there because it's obviously a need for the Patriots along with left tackle. You've got Kupp. You've also got Tyler Lockett, who was released by Seattle. And if you look at Lockett, he's an interesting case because this past year, his numbers were down, but Jackson Smith and Jigba had a lot to do with that, right? Seattle, they were focused on JSN and DK Metcalf. And Lockett, he didn't get nearly as many targets last year. Last year, he had 74 targets. The year before, he had 122. So Lockett's targets dropped. He still finished with 49 catches and 600 yards. But when you look at what Lockett has done, I mean, the prior 5 years, 79 catches, 84 catches, 73 catches, 100 catches in 2020, 82 catches in 2019. He had 1,000 yards in 4 of those 5 seasons. So before last year, he was good for 75 catches and 1,000 yards. That's what he was good for. He was good for 75 catches and 1,000 yards pretty much every single season for 5 years. Last year, he fell back, but again, that had a lot to do with Jackson Smith and Jigba. JSN was getting a lot of those targets. So Tyler Lockett is an interesting name to me. He's a very interesting name to me. Another guy is obviously Brandon Ayuk. Oh, yeah. The Brandon Ayuk conversation continues. If you haven't noticed, San Francisco is ripping that team apart right now. They're letting guys go. They want to trade guys. Ayuk is seemingly available. I don't think Ayuk would cost you more than a third or fourth round pick because he's coming off the ACL and the MCL. So Brandon Ayuk is a name that is out there. And I do think the Patriots could trade for him if they wanted to. If they were willing to give up that third or fourth round pick, I think they would be able to make that deal. Of course, does Brandon Ayuk want to be here? He didn't want to be here last year, but Ayuk is in a much different situation this time around than he was a year ago. So Ayuk is on that list. A.J. Brown. What happens with A.J. Brown and the Philadelphia Eagles? There has been some frustration in the past for A.J. Brown in Philly. He's been frustrated with Jalen Hurts. How's that relationship? They seemingly kissed and made up, but is A.J. Brown going to be cool with staying there if he's not getting more targets next season? I don't know. Of course, there's the Vrabel link and all of that, and A.J. Brown would be the perfect receiver for the Patriots, but I find it unlikely that Brown is going to be available. So you've got Kupp, you've got Lockett, you've got Ayuk via trade possibly, you've got Brown, and then you get to, the free agents. Stephon Diggs coming off ACL. Would Stephon Diggs, once again, as we say, fit the culture? Would Diggs fit the culture that Mike Vrabel is trying to establish here with the Patriots? Would he be on his quote-unquote best behavior if you gave him a 1-year deal? I'd have to do a lot of digging into Diggs to see, no pun intended, just realized what I said. But I do a lot of research on Diggs. And, if his head's in the right place, then I might be willing to give him a 1-year deal. But I've got to know, because he's a guy that's made noise. He's a guy that's very emotional. He could get in the ear of Drake May. There could be some concern about Diggs. And I would not kill the Patriots if they weren't interested, again, because he's had some things in his past that make you wonder how he would deal with a situation if the Patriots aren't winning with a young quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. So some questions about Diggs. Keenan Allen looks like he lost a lot of what he had. I don't know how much interest you'd have in Keenan Allen. I don't think he's the answer. You could look at, I don't know, DeAndre Hopkins is now off the market, went to Baltimore last night. So Amari Cooper did not look like the same guy in Buffalo. Of course, Cooper was in Cleveland before he was traded to Buffalo, so Mike Vrabel could have some information, some intel on him. Ashton Grant could have some intel on him. And then you get to the draft. And it becomes interesting with the draft. Would the Patriots draft Tet McMillan at 4? Would they move back and draft Tet McMillan? Do they like Matthew Golden from Texas? How do they feel about him? He crushed the combine. Jaden Higgins is a name that I've brought up a couple of times. You might be able to get him in the early second round. You might have to move into the late first round to draft Jaden Higgins, but he's a big 6'4" ex-receiver type, had a really good combine, was tremendous catching footballs downfield when those footballs were actually thrown on target last season. So Jaden Higgins is a very, very interesting option in the late first round, early second round, if the Patriots were interested. So that's what wide receiver looks like. Free agency starts in about 6 minutes. We'll see if anything pops off. If nothing pops off in the first few minutes, we'll see where I go from there. But free agency officially begins in about 5 to 6 minutes. How about guard? I think another need for the Patriots is guard, specifically left guard. Obviously, when you sign Morgan Moses, you now have, thankfully, Mike Onwenu at right guard, where he should be. Keep him there. Please keep Mike Onwenu at right guard. Stop moving him around. So now Morgan Moses, right tackle, Caden Wallace behind Moses. Hopefully you can develop Caden Wallace. When you look at left guard, What do you have out there? Tevin Jenkins is still available. A guy who played, I think, 14 games last year for Chicago. Very talented, but he's missed a lot of games before last year with injury. So Tevin Jenkins is somebody who, I would be looking at. Brandon Sheriff. He's 33, 34 years old, but he had a good season last year. He's somebody who might be able to get you a year or two of a stopgap. So Brandon Sheriff, somebody I'd look at. Kevin Zeitler is somebody I would look at. Now, Sheriff and Zeitler both played right guard. Can they move to the left? That's a question. Another interesting name further down the list is Will Hernandez. Will Hernandez has played both the right side and the left side at guard, so he gives you some flexibility. So guard is another thing they've got to look at, especially on the left side. I'd be looking at Jenkins, Sheriff, Zeitler, and Hernandez. Those are some names. Those are some names that are still out there that I'd be interested in. I also wouldn't be shocked if the Patriots are still looking for a pass rusher. I know they added Harold Landry, but I don't think it's a bad idea to add another pass rusher along with Landry. Here are some names for you. Von Miller on a 1-year deal, right? Now, of course, he probably wants to go to a contender, etc. He might go back to Buffalo, but he's on the list. Von Miller. Azeez Ojulari. I've brought him up. He was part of my offseason plan. I would be interested in Azeez Ojulari. If you don't get one of those two guys, I think the Patriots will likely look at the draft for that second edge guy, for that pure pass rusher, because in the draft, there are a number of pass rushing edges that will be there in day 2, day 3, maybe even day 1. If you're looking at a Walker, somebody like that, I think the Patriots will have options to bring in that second edge rusher, that second pass rusher, along with Landry for some depth. But I'm looking at Ojulari, Von Miller, some other names out there in free agency. And if you don't land one of those guys, you look at the draft, day 2, day 3 as a possibility. All right, let's, I believe I got a super chat in here. We got 3 minutes before free agency begins. Vitalix with a $5 super chat. When is Buddy Bedard going to make an appearance on Everything Pats? Come on, Greg. And Greg, to be fair to Greg, I have not asked Greg to appear. I have not asked Greg to appear because, we do 2 podcasts a week. So I feel like Greg gets enough of me. But maybe I will have Greg on the show soon. I'm sure Greg would certainly make time. I'm sure he'd certainly make time. Not the strongest time management from Greg Bedard, by the way. So maybe he wouldn't be able to make time. Maybe he'd be a mess. But, to defend Greg, I have not asked him. So he's got to be asked for him to say yes. I don't know if people want more Bedard and Cattles since they get us twice a week. That's a lot of Bedard and Cattles. So the remaining needs to me, the priorities, you're looking at left tackle, you're looking at left guard, you're looking at wide receiver, you're looking at another pass rusher to go along with Landry. I think those are your main needs. I'd also throw free safety in there. And I don't know what the deal is with Jonathan Jones. We'll see if anything comes out about Jonathan Jones here at the beginning of free agency. We'll see if deals come out, if they're announced over the next few minutes. I wouldn't be against bringing Jonathan Jones back on a 1-year short money deal. I think I'd kick him back to free safety. You now have Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez on the outside at cornerback 1 and 2. But I would not be opposed bringing back. I would not be opposed to bringing back Jonathan Jones to be that free safety guy in the back to help out. I would not be up against that. I would not be up against that whatsoever. Just saw a tweet from ESPN, their analytics, I guess. The top free agent spenders in the last 5 years. So when you look at the top free agent spender in the last 5 years, the Eagles spent the most money last year. They improved their wins by 3. The Ravens were the top spender in 2023. They improved their wins by 3. The Jaguars spent the most money in 2022. They improved their wins by 6. Of course, the Patriots had their 2021 free agency period. They improved their wins by 3, and the Dolphins back in 2020 spent the most money, and they improved by 5. So what that would tell us is the last 5 free agency classes, the biggest spender was guaranteed to increase their win total by at least 3, if not more. So if the Patriots obviously improved their win total by 3, we know what we would have. We would obviously have a 7-win football team. We'll see if they do any better than that. All right, the official start of free agency, it has begun. I don't know if anything is going to come out. We'll have to wait and see. I got Twitter fired up. Have people been holding off? Have they been waiting? Have they been waiting until 4 o'clock to drop news? I don't know. We got a ton of news on Monday, as is usually the case. The Patriots, doing what they do. Dobbs, Hollins, Tonga late Monday after signing Williams and Landry and everybody else under the sun. So the new league year begins. Tom Pelissero is reporting that Russell Wilson is expected to visit the Browns. I would not be too concerned about that as the Patriots, if I'm the Patriots, because, if you bring in Russell Wilson, you're bringing Russell Wilson in for a year. So if Cam Ward goes number 1 to Tennessee and Cleveland says we're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, maybe their plan is, well, we'll draft Shedeur Sanders, but we'll have Russell Wilson to start the season because we might not start Shedeur Sanders right off the bat. Now, I think if you draft a guy in the top 3, if he's ready to play, then you play him. But, Russell Wilson to me is washed. I thought he was washed before last year. I think he's still washed. I don't think he's going to become unwashed. I don't think it's going to happen. And let's not forget, Adam Schefter has reported that, Cleveland's going to draft a quarterback at number 2. Schefter said that weeks ago. So he's very confident that the Browns are going to go quarterback at number 2. Whether or not that's true, who is to know? We'll have to wait and see. But usually Schefter is pretty good at this stuff. He's usually pretty good at stuff. So, and that's another thing we got to watch out for, right? The quarterback stuff. If Wilson is going to visit Cleveland, then does that mean he knows that Rodgers is going to end up being a Steeler? We heard that the Steelers, they wanted, to supposedly, reportedly, they were interested in keeping Justin Fields. Fields goes to the Jets, and now the conversation is all about Rodgers, which Rodgers loves, and he's going to continue to drag his feet. The conversation is, will Rodgers go to Pittsburgh or will Rodgers go to the Giants? So maybe this tells us with Russell Wilson visiting Cleveland, maybe this tells us that Rodgers is going to Pittsburgh. Maybe it tells us nothing about Rodgers. Maybe Russell Wilson knows that he's not going to be picked up by the Steelers, so he's going on to Cleveland, and, maybe he can get a gig for 1 year in Cleveland. Russell Wilson going to Cleveland, it would really be the perfect Cleveland Browns decision at quarterback to sign Russell Wilson. It'd be perfect. With all the different quarterbacks that have gone through there, Russell Wilson being if that's his last year, that would be a hell of a thing. Him finishing his career in Cleveland. So the Russell Wilson stuff is really the only big stuff, if you want to call it big, coming out right now. It's been very quiet the last couple of days. I think that's got to do with the fact that you go through the initial tier of top free agents. Those guys sign, they get the money, and then you've got this pocket of free agents that are waiting and hoping that they'll get big money. So they're kind of waiting the market out. And then you've got that second wave, that second tier of free agency, where those guys are just waiting for teams to spend money. And then, their market might improve because teams weren't capable of, filling them. So you have those different waves of free agency. And by the way, I forgot to say this earlier. The Patriots are holding a press conference tomorrow at 1 p.m. at Gillette Stadium. They're going to discuss their day 1 free agent signings. And it indicates, according to Andrew Callahan, it indicates that team leadership will be made available, possibly some players. So tomorrow at 1 p.m., we will have a press conference with some of the leaders of the organization. I'd imagine that's Vrabel and Elliott Wolf, and that's probably the only two. And again, don't believe anything that they say tomorrow about who's in charge, who's making the final call. Mike Vrabel's in charge. All right. Nothing is happening. I've been going over an hour here on this live stream today. I'm not going to go another 3-hour marathon. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If something big happens, I'll be right back here to talk about it. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Again, if something big happens, I'm going to jump right back on and react. Like, comment, subscribe, help a brother out. Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. See you.